The Codice Maya of Mexico was written in 1100 CE by a single Mayan scribe.
It is the oldest book in all of the Americas. Now this brief video will translate this 922-year-old Mayan Codex, page by page. The Mayan Codex was likely found in a dry cave in northern Chiapas or Tabasco, but in Mexico, somewhere near the classic Maya sites of Palenque and Tortuguero. As such, it shows heavy influences of Central Mexican groups, even though the book is considered a Mayan book. In fact, this Mayan author is well versed in artistic styles from Tula, which is in Central Mexico, and Chichen Itza, which is in the Mayan Yucatan. At least 24 distinct stylistic features from Central Mexico and Oaxaca are found within the Codex, including the artistic style of juxtaposing a warrior and a deity. And it is only the fourth Mayan book that survived the Spanish genocide, which burned and destroyed libraries full of Mexican books. This book was rediscovered in the 1960s by looters, and it's taken more than 54 years to analyze and authenticate this book. But this Mexican book is 100% real. Viva Mexico! And it's one of only 15 surviving books written by ancient Mexicans and Central Americans before 1492, which includes the Mayan Dresden Codex, the Mixtec Codex Nutal, the Central Mexican Codex Borgia, and the Mayan Codex Paris, which is named after the city that currently houses the book. The Mayan Codex is 10 pages long, but there appears to be 10 pages missing, making the accordion-style book some 2.16 meters long. Mesoamerican codices were constructed as accordions. They're books that fold up and out in a very easy manner, as you can see here on the screen. The Codice Maya de Mexico has one primary story. It records the complex movements of the planet Venus across its 4 cycles. The Codex records 65 complete Venus cycles, which takes a total of 104 years. Now, each phase of the Codex represents the beginning of one of the 4 phases of the Venus cycle with a series of dates. The Mayans tracked many planets, but Venus was especially important to Mesoamericans because it's the closest planet to Earth, and when visible, it's the brightest object in the sky, not counting the sun or the moon. The Codice Maya tracks the 4 cycles of Venus, which are 1. The morning star, where Venus rises before the sun in the east for 236 days. 2. Superior conjunction. It's when Venus is behind the sun and is not visible for 90 days. 3. Evening star, when the planet is visible in the west after sunset for 250 days. And inferior conjunction, when the planet is orbiting between Earth and the sun and is not visible for 8 days. 1, 2, 3, 4. When looking at the synodic Venus cycle and the Maya's Codex, page 1, 5, and 9 is associated with superior conjunction, found at the top. That's when Venus is invisible. Page 2, 6, and 10 associated with evening star. Page 3 and 7 associated with inferior conjunction, when Venus is not visible for a second time. And page 4 and 8 associated with morning star, the most important phase because it's when Venus rises before the sun. When the Greeks tracked Venus, they actually thought Venus was 2 separate planets. But the Mayans could track Venus a lot better, even when Venus goes invisible for more than 90 days. They knew Venus was only one planet because the Maya were expert astronomers. Now, let's break down the Codice Maya de Mexico. Page 1 begins with the date 1 Gan, which is actually now missing and marks superior conjunction, or the 90-day period when Venus disappears behind the sun. This state is governed by the Maya god of lightning, Grolier. He's shown here with a long snout, human-like teeth, standing triumphantly over a captive. Grolier wears a beautiful headdress of feathers and flint knives, and a collar with 3 metal bells, probably rattles, although Michael argues they might be human eyeballs. Grolier has a lance in his right hand, decorated with a beaded disc and a feathered tassel, which appears to be quetzal feathers, with lateral serrations that likely represent flesh-tearing shark teeth. It's likely a saw shark or sawfish, which is seen in other Mayan spirit artwork and in Aztec offerings. The spirit is resting on the captive's tightly braided hair, although it could be a headband or twined rope. The spears are very similar in spears in Tula, Stela 3, and from the temple of Chacmul at Chichen Itza. Now this captive is bound by a rope held by Grolier's left hand. The captive is also wearing an ear spool with a long protruding bead. The ring number at the top tells the reader how many days to count forward. There's 4 darts of 20 days, where each plus 10 days inside a knotted bundle above Grolier's head, that tells the reader to count forward 90 days through the period of superior conjunction's invisibility to the first appearance of Venus as evening star, which is on page 2. Page 2 shows Venus as evening star, and the page is protected by a skeleton deity with a small mohawk that is consistent with Mesoamerican death god imagery and is seen as early as 100 BCE, suggesting that this is the Mayan death god called Kimi or Kisin, similar to what the Aztecs called Mictlantecutli. However, this may be the central deity Tlaxcuiltecutli, who also appears as a weapon-wielding skeleton in the art of Chichen Itza. Out of the skeleton's mouth is a curled breath or stylized speech scroll, perhaps indicating smoke, a mist of blood, or the stench of death's decay. He's the only deity in this book that's wearing a jaguar headdress with a long stream of feathers. This depiction is common in mystic manuscripts. The feline headdress may reference the day X, or jaguar, when morning star begins, starting with 13X at the top of the column of the signs in the left margin. You can also see flowers adjacent to the jaguar spots. This deity is also armed with a shark tooth-studded lance, and as is, he essentially appears as a Toltec warrior, just like the massive Atlantean columns atop Pyramid B at the city of Tula. Toltec warrior garb worn by this deity includes fringed sleeves on the forearms and knees, a Toltec round mirror, Tezcatlipoca, with a skull emerging from the center attached to the back of its padded belt, and a chest ornament in the shape of a stylized butterfly, probably made of turquoise mosaic over a wooden back. And you can also see the stylized butterflies on the Toltec warrior on the left. Now the chest ornament recalls Central Mexican notions that the souls of the warriors who fall in battle are transformed into butterflies. Across the waist of the deity is a large box, bag, or belt. The large sections of the codex are actually missing, and this deity probably originally held a captive tied by a rope, which is consistent with other pages. So, just examining Venus, after pursuing the sun as it sinks into the western horizon every evening for a period of 250 days, as indicated by the now damaged ring number of 12 dots plus 20, plus 10 bundled days at the top of the page. Venus disappears for a period of 8 days on page 3. On page 3, the deity that oversees the crucial phase of inferior conjunction in the Venus cycle has one of the most elaborate headdresses of the book, and may represent the head of the feathered serpent, or supernatural embodiment of the wind that is closely linked to the god Quetzalcoatl. And if true, this page may represent the 8 days that Quetzalcoatl spent in the underworld fashioning weapons after his death and expulsion from the city of Tula, before re-emerging on the eastern horizon as a terrifying war god, the morning star. The deity wears a beaded gold disc on his shoulders and holds a rope attached to a captive, restrained by the lance we've seen in previous pages. This captive has dark black eyeshadows, a necklace of jade beads, and a crown topped by 2 black-tipped eagle feathers that point out of the headdress. The crown resembles the pointed turquoise Xihuitzoli diadem worn by Toltec kings and those of the later Aztec Empire, which may imply that rulers were in peril on the 13 days of Khan that initiate the beginning of the 8 days of Venus's disappearance. In other codices, darts were thrown at thrones, so even rulers were not safe from Venus. On page 3, Venus becomes invisible to Earth for 8 days, which is stated on the bundle number on the top of page 3, with the day 3 Khan. As Venus travels between Earth and the Sun during inferior conjunction, Venus is not visible because of the Sun's brilliance. Now, counting forward 8 days from the given dates in the left margin, Venus reappears as morning star on page 4. The first appearance of morning star on 11 Eb is overseen by the Mayan lightning deity Kawil, but now has a different headdress and weapon. He wears a floral headband and a trailing stream of quetzal feathers. His collar is decorated with round bells or jewels. He wears the knee ruffs of a Toltec warrior, with what is probably a coyote's tail on the left knee. In most Mayan art, Kawil often appears as a personified axe wielded by rulers, with a smoking stone blade projecting from his forehead and a long leg that terminates in the head of a serpent that serves as the handle. This Kawil lacks both the serpent foot and the forehead axe blade, but has the long curved snout typical of later representations. Of what we can see of the captive, he's bound by a twisted rope held in Kawil's left hand, along with a long hair or headdress. The captive could be the Maya maize god, whose long, sinuous head is an ear of corn. The ring number at the top of the page tells the reader to count forward 236 days from the first appearance of morning star on the Eb dates to the beginning of the superior conjunction invisibility period that begins on the next page. Now here on page 5, Venus disappears at superior conjunction beginning on the day 13 Lamat, and is overseen by a deity that wears a distinctive headdress of a double-headed snake bound by a knot. These serpent headdresses often appear on female Mesoamerican art figures, but this deity is highly likely a male solar deity, according to Michael Cole et al. The large nose of this deity is a sign of old age in Mayan artwork, and it appears on Mayan sun gods, and the double line framing The mouth also appears on other Mesoamerican solar beings that you can see here on page 5. This deity holds a spear thrower in one hand, an atlat, and a bundle of darts and a round shield in the other. The center of the shield may have a star-like face, or more likely is the number 7, a bar with 2 dots. This symbol also records shields by classic Mayan rulers that bear the face of the jaguar, god of the underworld. There's no captive on this page, but the deity has hit the temple on the left with a burning dart, and you can see it here lodged on the steps, usually read as a sign of conquest. The floral elements on top of the structure suggest that this is the eastern house of dawn, the abode where the rejuvenated morning sun emerges. So having struck the temple with a celestial dart as Venus and the sun come into alignment, the god of nighttime sun accompanies Venus as it disappears in superior conjunction. Counting forward 90 days, 4 counts of 20 days plus 10 bundle days, with the ring number framed by the snake's headdress, Venus reappears as evening star on page 6. Page 6. The first appearance of evening star on 12 Etznab is represented by another skeletal deity. The deity is armed with a jagged-edged stone blade, likely obsidian, and you can see the prisoner's head has been completely cut off. There's dripping blood as the deity lifts the head. You can see another flint knife comes through the nose of the deity, a feature that appears with the death deities in Toltec and Mexica imagery, including the Venus god Tlahuixcapantlacuhtli and the central Mexican lord of the underworld, Mictlantecutli. The squiggly lines on the legs indicate bones. This deity wears a knotted headdress with a collar of metal bells that we've seen earlier, including the round Toltec-style mirror that he wears on the back. A human heart appears on the front of the belt. He also has knotted paper streamers on the knees and ankles. The victim has a clear curling band around their eyes, and their eyes bruised, and has long hair. Including the deities on page 2 and 10, the Codice Maya de Mexico now warns that the first appearance of evening star is a particularly dangerous and terror-inspiring event. So, counting forward 250 days, 12 counts of 20 days plus 10 bundle days, with the ring numbers at the top, Venus vanishes from the night sky. Page 7 begins on the date Tulamat. This deity stands before a tree whose branches produce round jewels instead of fruit. The tree has a face, referred to as the Shiner by scholars, and it is a personification of the Mayan concept of sacredness and celestial brilliance, known as Ku. The deity is wearing a headdress with 3 long eagle feathers up front and curving quetzal feathers, as well as a Toltec-style fringed arm and knee bands with the coyote tail streamers. The deity is also wearing a necklace widely popular among Toltec art and decorated with the same motif as the shield held on page 5, and is either a face or the number 7. The headdress might be a stylized representation of the descending bird worn on the brow of central Mexican fire deity Xuetecutli, who appears launching morning star darts in the Venus pages of the Dresden Codex. There is a cloth in his left hand, which deities from Tula and Chichen Itza wear. This page marks the 8-day invisibility of Venus at inferior conjunction. After counting 8 days forward from the dates on the left, with the ring number at the top of the scene, Venus reemerges as morning star on page 8. Page 8 begins at 10 Gib and again marks the beginning of Venus's 236-day morning star phase, when Venus is on the eastern horizon before the sun. A bird deity oversees this phase with amazing eagle-like talons, a pointed lance, and a spear thrower in his left hand. These clawed feet are reminiscent of images found at Tula, Chichen Itza, and Aztec eagle warriors. However, the legs could be feathers or rattlesnake tails, often found in Mesoamerican art. There's another extravagant headdress of long quetzal feathers that extend over the back, with an avian beak decorated with serpent-like fangs. This deity is also wearing a back mirror attached to a case or an animal pelt, just like Toltec warriors. And just like on page 5, the deity has fired a dart into a temple as a sign of conquest. The roof of the building resembles spear points. With the temple on page 5 was solar, this temple may be lunar. The ring number at the top of the page presents 11 counts of 20-day plus 16 days, with a bundle for the total of 236 days, leading to the disappearance of Venus at superior conjunction, page 9. Page 9 starts on 12 Eb and is the 90-day invisibility period of Venus at superior conjunction. It's overseen by a deity with two-pronged headdress. His nose appears larger, which is common of older age in Mayan art, like on page 5. And the main image is likely a mountain deity that was virtually unknown when the book was found. Now, the prominent two-pronged headdress curls back of his head as personifies mountains in Maya imagery and envisioned as human-made mountains. The earliest known human-made mountain in Mayan art is 400 BCE. Since the Codice Maya of Mexico was rediscovered, other examples of this deity have been discovered in a mirror at Tancach, Quintana Roo, which confirms the small circles on his headdress represent maíz. This theme reflects widespread Mesoamerican myths where a deity uses lightning to open a mountain that contains maíz. He holds a round stone in his left hand, which is a symbol of punishment in Mesoamerica and probably refers to earthquakes and or rock slides. It appears the captive is lifted off the ground by the deity, and he has an aquatic bird on his head and wears an ornament around his neck that relates to bread and wind. Now, 90 days after the disappearance of Venus, in this instance governed over by an ominous mountain deity, the planet reappears as evening star on page 10. Now, the last page is the most damaged page. Page 10 would have originally marked the first appearance of Venus as evening star, beginning on the date 11 Ik. Page 10 is guided by a skeleton deity. He carries a spear and a round shield with a skull on it. On his knees are sacrificial, triple-stacked paper knots that allude to his deathly nature. He has an awesome bird headdress with a long hook beak, which is probably a vulture. He also wears jewelry, a round ear ornament, and 3 metal bells. He also has obsidian sandals. His left hand grabs 3 darts, and like the deities on page 5 and 8, he has launched a 4th dart using the spear thrower held in his right hand. There's remnants of Maya blue near the bottom, parallel to his feet. That shows the basin is a body of water, and the conch tells the same aquatic story. These sequences give a warning of drought. As many as 10 pages could have followed, and the next page would have marked the beginning of inferior conjunction when evening star disappears from the night sky after 250 days. But that's it for us. We've tracked 65 complete Venus cycles that lasted 104 years as they were tracked by master Mayan astronomers. I want to thank you very much for watching this video. I want to give a special shout out to the Getty, who's currently housing this amazing book, and for the monograph edited by Andrew Turner, which is a big help to me. Thanks again.